Hi, my name is Rich, and in today's video I'd like to ask the question, is Dungeons & Dragons a symptom of gentrification? If you're watching this, then there's a good chance you already know what the game of Dungeons & Dragons is all about, but if you don't, please click the link and there is a separate video you can watch explaining it. Let's start out with getting a definition of what gentrification is. But before that, I would like to say thanks for clicking on the video, and it would mean a lot to me if you gave it a thumbs up or leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up to date with all my new videos. So, let's get started. What is gentrification? Gentrification is the process of working class homes and areas being bought up by middle and upper class people for the purpose of renting or refurbishing and selling them for a profit, or flipping a house. I think we can all agree that this is a very capitalist thing to be doing. Because of this, the identity of a working class area is transformed into a safer, more appealing middle class area. In the UK, some of these schemes have been even initiated by local councils. The result of this is that a lot of working class families that are using the houses to live in are being displaced and driven out by rising prices. And subsequently, there is a rise in more luxury shopping experiences around the area, such as artisan bakeries or high market coffee shops. Places that cater to people on a minimum wage 20 years ago that just wanted to grab some cheap lunch are now filled with expensive boutiques and cater towards middle-aged housewives. As gentrification gets older, places considered edgy and young turn into more placid and generic as their residents mature in parallel. For some anecdotal evidence, I can tell you there are places in Glasgow that used to sell a haggis supper, some chicken pakora and a bottle of Iron Brew for a fiver, but now they're selling imported coffee beans, salmon darns and artichoke served on a slate, and being accompanied by microbrewed ethical wheat beer or a gin Floridora mocktail. A lentil dal and a focaccia in a vegan restaurant in the West End is the same price as a week's worth of food shopping for your gran at Iceland. Now, I don't claim to be an expert on the topic, and I know that in other countries it has a vastly different connotation. You can go back and watch a movie like Boys in the Hood to catch a glimpse into the American way it's perceived. For a movie that is nearly 30 years old, it has some surprisingly relevant topics in today's current climate. The speed at which it happens can vary from a couple of years to generations. Because gentrification can be such a slow and methodical effect, a lot of people are born and raised into the process and don't realise that it's happening. It's something that doesn't care about race or culture, and it's more about the land you're standing on. In short, it's good for business, but bad for those that can't afford it. Part 2. Dungeons & Dragons. At its roots, Dungeons & Dragons is a very suburban American thing. Made by a bunch of nerds in the late 70s, one could argue that it's a piece of Americana. Millennial culture has been dominated by consumable media branded as subculture. Things like Harry Potter, Star Wars, the Marvel movies, and the rise of video games have turned into a billion-dollar market. A lot of this nostalgia content has been produced and marketed towards the middle class with disposable income. Movies that were popular in the 80s and 90s are getting reboots and soft reboot sequels to try and capitalize on the trend. Funko Pops and vinyl toy figures have sprung up, catering towards the 20s and 30s demographic rather than teenagers. A lot of the generation has been focused on consumption and has sped up to an alarming rate. Instead of politicians having a single scandal in their career, it's become commonplace for politicians to have a fresh scandal every day. The speed of the media consumption has been accentuated by digital access to more content than is humanly possible to consume. Now, Dungeons & Dragons has been having a resurgence since the 5th edition was released in 2016, and it tries to appeal to a more broader demographic. The IP's owner, Wizards of the Coast, has pushed up for a more modern take and tried to get more of the woke audience. And of course there has been a vocal backlash from a disgruntled minority of hardcore fans, but this is to be expected from most properties that have loyal fan bases. Whether this is a deliberate moral choice from the company or just appealing to the widest audience is still to be seen. Part 3. What is the image of D&D? If you went to a hypothetical working class high street, I would hazard a guess that you wouldn't find a book shop or a hobby shop, and if you did, getting one that specialised in one product such as D&D would be even rarer. The game is sold mainly in hobby shops, so spending money on a premium product like D&D rulebooks is not common. The argument can be made that D&D is cheaper monetarily than most other hobbies, but it takes a lot of reading, preparation and organising. D&D is a niche within a niche. Despite its media scapegoat reputation in the 80s, the idea of sitting around a table with friends and playing in 2020 seems almost quaint and almost retro-fashionable. D&D is just one of these fashionable things that is capturing new young players every year and is considered a peaceful and nerdy thing to do. This is exactly the type of thing that a safe branded neighbourhood would have. Something more appealing to house buyers and investors wanting to gentrify location and increase the market value. Part 4. Grassroots and the open license. One of the advantages of D&D is that it has an open game license for players and creators to use the rules in their own settings and campaigns. Technically, they should be share-alike copies and derivative works, so your friends homebrew that copies from Dragon Ball, Sherlock Holmes and Narnia should be okay to share. Allowing fans to make their own games, settings and features has helped solidify the game into a thriving creative community. It has a certain DIY quality that can be found in punk music or independent painters and illustrators, and you can combine that with the mechanical appeal of game theory and design. Because it has an open license, then you're free as a content creator to interpret what aspects you enjoy about the game and focus on them. Conclusion. I think that D&D is just one part of a greater puzzle. It can be a minor symptom of gentrification. Is playing D&D good? Yes. Its open-ended game design allows for people of all walks of life to play and enjoy. Isolated and by itself, D&D is a great fun game, but it is a symptom of gentrification. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like, subscribe, or leave me a comment. I would love to hear what your opinions are, and I think the channel can be a great way to start a dialogue.